All right, let's just jump right in. For years, maybe decades, video games have been caught in this huge tug of war. Are they a secret weapon for hacking our brains and making us smarter? Or are they just, digital brain rot? The debate is everywhere, but the real science behind it all is way more interesting than you'd think.
So let's get right to the heart of it. Superpower or crutch? We've all got our opinions, right? But today we're going to dig into what the actual research has to say. And spoiler alert, the answer is not a simple yes or no. It's actually this incredibly fascinating look at how our minds get tangled up in these digital worlds.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start by looking at who's actually playing these days. Then we'll dive into this really crucial puzzle, skill versus how often you play. After that, we'll check out how different types of games train your brain differently. And finally, we'll pull it all together with the big takeaway, how to play smarter. Okay, first up, let's just bust a huge myth right off the bat. That classic image of a gamer, the teenager holed up in a basement, yeah, that's completely out of date. The world of gaming looks totally different now. And this right here, this chart, is what changes the whole conversation. Get this, in the US, only about 20% of gamers are kids. The huge majority are adults, and almost a third, are over 50 years old. So this is not just some teenage hobby anymore. It's a lifelong thing, which means we have to understand what it's doing to our brains at every single age.
But it makes sense to start where all the research really began, with the developing brain. Adolescence is this time of just massive growth and change in our cognitive abilities, so it's a super important time to see what kind of impact gaming has.
And the results for teens, they're actually pretty amazing. Being skilled at gaming is connected to a whole bunch of good stuff. We're talking a brain that's better at planning, remembering things, switching between tasks, and even, get this, recognizing emotions. So for teenagers, the picture looks pretty rosy, right? But what happens when the researchers look at that other 76% of gamers, the adults? Well, that's when things get a lot more complicated. That simple, straight line between plays games and has better brain function starts to get all wavy. And this, right here, this leads us to maybe the single most important idea we're going to talk about today. It turns out the big question isn't if you play games, it's how you play them. And it all comes down to this one critical difference. Are you playing with skill, or are you just playing a lot? So here's the core idea, laid out plain and simple. Researchers found that being a skilled player is actually linked with having fewer problems with things like memory and planning. But playing with high frequency, just playing all the time, that's linked to more problems. It's like gaining mastery builds your brain up, but just playing endlessly might be burning it out. I mean, the researchers themselves said it perfectly. Skill appears beneficial, whereas excessive frequency may undermine control processes. Just think about that for a second. Two people can play for the exact same amount of time. One of them is basically sharpening their brain like a tool, while the other might actually be making it duller. And if you want to see this in action, just look at the data from young adults. The people who played with skill but at a low frequency, they actually showed a protective effect. They reported fewer problems with memory and planning. But the high-frequency players, it was the opposite, an adverse effect with more problems. It's a complete flip. And you want some cold, hard proof of what skill can do? Look at reaction time. The highly skilled players were noticeably faster than the low-skilled ones. We're talking measurable differences in performance tied directly to how good they were at the game. All right, so we've got it. Skillful, moderate play is the goal. But hold on, there's another piece to this puzzle. The type of game you're playing really, really matters. Think of different genres as different workout machines for specific parts of your brain. So first up, we have strategy games. The ones where you're building empires, managing resources, that whole thing. And it kind of makes perfect sense, right? If you're good at these games, you show better planning and self-control. I mean, the game is literally forcing you to think 10 steps ahead, and that skill seems to carry over into real life. Okay, next up, role-playing games or RPGs. These are the big, epic ones all about story and character development. Now, this is where things get kind of weird. Being skilled at RPGs is linked to better emotional regulation and a stronger memory, which makes sense. You're tracking these massive quests. But here's the twist. In adults, it was also connected to lower empathy. How wild is that? A real contradiction. So, what about those super fast paced games? The action games and first person shooters?
The benefits here are pretty much exactly what you'd guess. We're talking lightning fast hand eye coordination, a sharper ability to pay attention, and the kind of visual memory that lets you basically see a map in your head.
And finally, we've got puzzle games. You know, the ones literally marketed to us as brain trainers. You'd assume the benefits here would be super straightforward. And they are. Well, partly. Being skilled is linked to being better organized. But the research found this bizarre paradox. It was also linked to having more trouble with behavioral regulation. It's just a perfect example of how, with the brain, nothing is ever as simple as it looks. So, after digging through all this, where does that leave us? What's the big picture? How can we actually use all these findings to think about games as maybe a tool for our own cognitive health? Let's just boil it all down into your key takeaways. Number one, moderation is everything. Skillful, focused play is what really moves the needle. Number two, genre is your training program, so pick the one that builds the skills you want. Three, don't forget that your age changes the equation. And maybe most importantly, remember that gaming isn't just good or bad. It's a tool, a really powerful one, and its impact is all about how you decide to use it. And all of this leaves us with this incredible forward-looking question. We're really just scratching the surface of mapping specific game mechanics to specific brain functions. So if we can start to consciously pick and even design games to train our brains, well, what does the future of digital brain fitness even look like? That's a pretty exciting thing to think about.